As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and joining me in just a moment will be Congressman Andy Biggs from the great state of Arizona. He has filed impeachment papers against Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, who of course is the Secretary of Homeland Security, for high crimes and misdemeanors. So we have all been through the last two impeachments that were totally hoaxes of Donald Trump. And of course, as conservatives, we do not ever want the impeachment process to be biased, to be partisan, or just inherently political. But I do think that the impeachment process that is vested in Article 1 of the House and gives the House authority to oversee the coordinate branches does need to be utilized more, especially when you have a runaway executive branch like the Biden administration and a lot of his executive officers. So I'm really excited for this conversation, and stay tuned. Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903. So joining me now is Congressman Andy Biggs. And Congressman, so you filed this impeachment against Secretary Mayorkas, and with the new Republican majority in the House, do you actually expect that you'll get enough support that this would go through and end up with a trial in the Senate?
I hope. I can only control the House. I mean, I can't even control the House. Let's be honest. But I can try to influence the House, and that's what we're trying to do to get these people. Get my colleagues to understand what's happening on the border, and it's the willful nature of it. We're picking up support every day from more members. They see what's going on, and there's some that are still reticent, but we're going to keep working with them.
Yeah, and you only do need that majority, if I'm not mistaken, to then, actually have the impeachment that is filed and then brought over to the Senate, that then they would be in control of an actual trial that then would have the 2/3 majority to have conviction and removal. And I don't think that the majority in the House is a really high threshold here, especially for someone like Mayorkas for the offenses that you have described. And so, let's go through those, because you have, alleged, of course, in the impeachment papers for high crimes and misdemeanors that obviously is the standard in Article 1 of the Constitution. And we litigated that in media for a long time with President Trump, of course, and that was just a pretext. But this, I think, is really the oversight responsibility of the House to look at the executive branch, look at the judicial branch. And while you can expel your own members in Congress, impeachment power is designed to restrain the coordinate branches to their limited authority. And when you have someone like Mayorkas, and we could name off a whole host of actors in the Biden administration that I think are derelicting their duty or have offenses that rise to the level of high crimes and misdemeanors, this really hasn't been done a lot before. And so while some may suggest that this is just partisan politicking, I think it's actually a really smart use of a power that our founders wisely vested in your office.
Yeah, Jenna, thanks. I agree with you. I mean, so if we were to just parse it just a little bit, just peel it back a little bit, a lot of people say, well, you should be impeaching Biden. Well, you can, but the Constitution specifically also allows you to impeach executive officers. And Mayorkas is an executive officer. And then they say, well, what crime? I actually had somebody say to me today, well, what federal offense has he violated? Well, high crimes and misdemeanors, whether you look at Farrar's notes on the minutes of the convention or Madison's notes himself, or if you look at Federalist 65 or any kind of analysis since that time, you're going to come down with what high crime and misdemeanor meant then and today, and has been accepted today, is when you have a public official who has violated their public duty and abused it, and they need to be removed from office in order to prevent further damage, perhaps even irreparable damage to the republic. So that really becomes the generic basis. And so then you have to look at it and say, well, what has he done? And we could take everything from the parole law. So the parole law basically allows the director to oversee on a case-by-case individualized basis limited parole. So sometimes you've had somebody who's injured, needs to come back, and they need a hospital stay, so a humanitarian deal. Maybe they've witnessed a crime. But in any event, you really haven't seen more than a dozen to 15 or so in any particular year until the Biden administration. Last year, Jenna, over 300,000 people received parole. And the plan for this year is to add to that 300,000 an additional 360,000. It's going to be even more than that because they've created an app called CBP One. So you can pre-register if you're on the other side of the border, which also, by the way, that violates the parole statute, violates the asylum laws because you need to be in the U.S. But they're allowing them to pre-register for parole when they get here. And what the parole status is effectively is de facto amnesty. So they're going to give you a document that says you can work for up to 2 years. We're not going to keep track of you. You can go where you want to go. And guess what? They're in the interior. They're gone, and they're never going to come back. And so that's just one example of how he's violated the law that he's supposed to be enforcing.
Yeah, and that sounds, Congressman, quite similar to what President Obama did with the whole DACA situation, and that Congress never authorized. And he simply broadly said as an executive order that basically taking away all discretion from the immigration officials and just saying, we aren't even going to look at these cases individually. We're going to treat them all similarly. And that isn't a function that a president or the executive branch is allowed to do in terms of bypassing Congress. They are tasked under Article 2 with enforcing the law that your branch creates. And I've always said, if a president or these executive officers like Mayorkas want to create the law, then go run for Congress. That's where our Constitution vests that authority. You can't just simply unilaterally decide what you like from Congress and what you don't. That's why we have the judicial process as well. And so that basis makes perfect sense. And I think your description as well of the historicity of high crimes and misdemeanors, of course, in context, the full phrase of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors, it was supposed to be more of the catch-all. And it's not specifically that it has to be a criminal offense or a violation of federal law. These types of impeachment cases are inherently political in the sense that they are determined by the coordinate branch. And so this isn't a criminal proceeding. Other lawyers have suggested it's quasi-criminal because there's the term conviction around it. But really, if we look at the Constitution, and tell me if you agree with this, that because impeachment authority is solely vested in the House, it's up to the deliberation of that body to determine whether the conduct rises to that level, and then it's up for a trial in the Senate. So there is that check and balance, because then both chambers would have to agree.
You're 100% right. I mean, so when the House gets together, I mean, Gerald Ford kind of tossed this off one time in relationship to the Watergate issue. But he said, a high crime is whatever the House says it is. In a way, he's right. And I don't mean to be I don't think we should be flippant about that. It's a very serious thing and should not be taken lightly. But at the same token, when you look at it and you say, well, this guy, in this case, Secretary Mayorkas, we can go through it and give time after time when he is deliberately chosen not to enforce the law, and the result and the ramification is so detrimental to the United States of America. So we basically attack the geographical integrity or our borders through his actions. And that tells me that that's willful. And if it's willful misconduct, then it's not just, someone was arguing with me today about maladministration, how that's not supposed to be there. Of course, that's true. The founders specifically rejected that term maladministration and chose, quite frankly, a broader term, high crimes and misdemeanors. The reason is they want to make sure that it's a serious offense, a serious breach of public duty that is causing irreparable harm or potentially irreparable harm. And it cannot wait till the next election, because the founders believed, and I do too, that you could have a revolution in this country every 2 years simply at the ballot box, provided that ballot box is one that's fair and open and transparent. So this notion that we should hold off and not take any action, actually that kind of belies our duty. It undercuts what our duty is, and it actually plays into the notion of what the bureaucracy and the executive branch has been doing for years, and that's eroding the authority of the legislative branch.
Yeah, absolutely. And the executive branch has been runaway over especially the last several decades, of course, other than even the Trump administration. I think that he stayed as much within the margins as possible. But you're right in terms of that term maladministration that the founders specifically rejected, because they didn't want this to be so political that just when there were opposing parties in power in the coordinate branches, then it would just be for political or partisan purposes. It had to be something where there was actually a dereliction of duty, or something that was intentionally done to violate the Constitution or go against the law. And, so many different cases that have gone before the Supreme Court, whether it's laws that Congress has passed or it's been executive orders, rather executive actions, have been overturned by the Supreme Court or other inferior courts through the process of judicial review. That's fine. That's the process. But when you have somebody like Joe Biden coming out and saying, well, I'm going to sign this executive order. I know that it'll probably get overturned at the Supreme Court, but hey, we have some time before that happens, before the process plays out. That's the kind of thing that I think is 100% impeachable, because he is intentionally saying, I'm violating my duty, but hey, you're not going to catch me until at least 6 months down the road. So here I can go and abuse my authority until the Supreme Court says otherwise.
No, that's right. And it's so maladministration was rejected because we didn't want to say you can be impeached for incompetence, because then everybody can be impeached and it'll be, as you say, pretty purely partisan, which, by the way, we didn't even have political parties at the time, but they knew that there'd be these formation of factions, and they didn't want it to be that way necessarily. So what happens is, they say basically, and that's why I mentioned intentionality. Mm-hmm. I think when we start looking at things, you should look at intentionality. The culpable mental state. Did they intend to do it? Just like we would in a criminal case or a civil case, we would say, how do you prove somebody's mental state? You would look at like a totality of circumstances. So what you would say, well, what did Mayorkas do? Well, he stood up early on. He said, we're not saying don't come. Just don't come just yet. But we're not saying don't come. What he was saying is, and then he said, we're going to make sure that when you come in, it's humane and just and it's equity. That's what he's going to do. So he changes all the policies, and yet he doesn't change the policies. The law still remains the same. What's different is he tells ICE, for instance, here's another problem. He says to ICE, look, there's 1.2 million people who have received due process and have a removal or deportation order. We're not looking for them. We're not going to try to remove those people. They would have to do something really extraordinary in order to be removed. And then he also says, you know what, just the fact that you have the misdemeanor, the first offense, illegal crossing into our country, we're not going to consider that as part of anything. So he's willfully violating the law over and over again to get whatever his desired outcome is, which looks like it's an open border, to erase our border. And I'm not going to speak to his motivation for why he wants an open border, but he obviously does want an open border. And he's the guy that's implementing these policies in such a way that's, very dangerous to the American people.
Yeah, well, I certainly respect the fact that you are challenging all of his conduct with the impeachment process. And even though the impeachment process hasn't been used in American history all that often, I mean, there's only a handful of cases with respect to presidents and then judges, and I think just only one other cabinet secretary who resigned before he was actually impeached. And so the only reason that he wasn't convicted, if I'm remembering my history correctly, this was after post-Civil War, was simply because he had resigned, and so there was a question of jurisdiction. Not that dissimilarly to what we saw with the second impeachment of President Trump. So some of these questions are arising, but in terms of actually using the power of impeachment to hold the other coordinate branches accountable and not just go after them in a partisan politicking manner, but if the House actually had the understanding that you do, and a majority of the House members were willing to say, yes, we need to specifically articulate and plead with specificity exactly these problems, the violations of duty, the high crimes and misdemeanors, and give them that check, and then they would have to defend themselves in the Senate. That is how our system is supposed to work. And I think for a lot of cabinet secretaries, hopefully the genuine, real threat of that would be compelling enough to hold them accountable and within the margins of the Constitution so that they will genuinely act according to their oath of office and not just to all of these policy outcomes, because that's what the Democrats do all the time. They simply look at the outcome that they want and then they manipulate the Constitution and the law around it, or just throw it out completely and say, well, I'm in office, I'm in power, I can do what I want. But it doesn't work that way when it comes to the U.S. Constitution. So I hope, Congressman Biggs, that you get that support and you get to the trial. And so where are you at in terms of, I know this has just been filed, but in terms of the conversation, are you getting a lot of your fellow members of Congress on the Republican side that understand the historicity as you do and are willing to give this a serious look?
There's a lot of our members that are coming on board and they're supportive. And even some of the ones who are less supportive say, well, we need to do the impeachment inquiry. And I say, okay, sure, absolutely. I'm all for the due process for this. But I'm going to tell you, unless you introduce the articles like I've done, you never get around to doing the impeachment inquiry. So we hopefully will be doing that. I'm trying to lay the case. We've had a hearing last week. We had a hearing in judiciary, not for impeachment inquiry, but certainly when you begin looking at it on the border issues. We had one earlier today on border issues in oversight committee. As you begin seeing those things happen, I think you lay the groundwork for the rationale to have a full-blown impeachment inquiry. And if we can get that impeachment inquiry, I think that the evidence is pretty damning against Secretary Mayorkas, and then we'll go forward from there.
Yeah, and process absolutely matters. I 100% agree with you, and I think that the process will show that the impeachment is warranted. But as you said, unless you file that first and then actually proceed with the inquiry, and you only have 2 years. I mean, this is something that you can't just sit around and wait and let him destroy the country and derelict his duty without holding him accountable as quickly as possible. I mean, it's ridiculous. Even in the criminal context, it seems like people don't just get their day in court; they get their decade in court, and so people are waiting, and the American people are waiting for justice and for due process. So Congressman Andy Biggs, really appreciate all of your hard work, and keep us posted, and you're always welcome to come back. Love talking with you. Thanks so much for your hard work.
Thank you, Jenna. Good talking to you.
Thanks. Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook. You need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903. Experts have been warning that a food shortage could be coming even in the United States. They've been telling us this for months. John Boyd Jr., a fourth-generation farmer, told Fox News that, quote, "We're going to see empty food shelves in the coming months. And this is why survival food is more important than ever." He's right. You need to create your stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food kits. This is not ordinary food. We're talking good for 25 years super survival food. This is hand-packed right in a family-owned facility here in the USA. The kits are compact, they're sturdy, they're water-resistant, and stack easily. But most importantly, they are survival food, and this is necessary as we have no idea what the next coming years may bring. So right now, you can go to 4patriots.com. That's the number 4patriots.com and use code Jenna to get 10% off your very first purchase. Included in this 3-month survival kit, you will get the year-long guarantee plus free shipping on orders over $97. They're called 4 Patriots because a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. Just go to 4patriots.com. That's the number 4patriots.com. Use promo code Jenna to get 10% off. That's 4patriots.com, promo code Jenna. Start building your stockpile today. Have you ever picked up a towel set because it felt so soft in the store, but then when you leave and you go to use it, it's not really that absorbent? It's basically a towel that is leaving you out to dry. That's why MyPillow has developed the MyPillow towels that actually work. I know, it's totally mind-blowing. Towels that actually dry you. Their 6-piece towel set includes 2 bath towels, 2 hand towels, and 2 washcloths. They come in a variety of colors. I have the sage green and the white. I love them. And right now you can receive a 6-piece set for only $39.98 with promo code Jenna. That's JENNA. So go to mypillow.com right now and click on the radio listeners special. MyPillow products come with a 10-year warranty and have a 60-day money-back guarantee. So to receive this amazing offer on the 6-piece towel set of MyPillow towels, just go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listener special, and enter promo code Jenna, that's JENNA, or call 1-800-564-8475. That's mypillow.com, promo code Jenna.